third-level education for the first time, because previously these had been the prerogative of the rich. A third factor was the rising expectations as a result of the ending of the isolation of Northern Ireland society, with television in particular, opening perspectives of people to other societies. They were no longer living in closed society. They could see that other people in other areas didn't have to put up with what they put up with.
One man, one vote! One man, one vote! One man, one vote!
The civil rights marches which followed took their inspiration from the black civil rights movement in America. It was a radical time, the year of the student rising in France and worldwide opposition to the Vietnam War. But their demands were specific and simple: electoral reform, an end to discrimination in jobs and housing, the abolition of the Special Powers Act, and the B specials, whom Catholics knew to be sectarian and partisan.
There was a united force of the people marching together in opposition to the lack of democratic rights in Northern Ireland.
The government had got away for 50 years just blatantly operating the policy of gerrymandering, which was particularly obvious in somewhere like Derry, and they didn't even bother to go to the trouble to hide it. It was quite blatant, and suddenly people said, we've had enough, we're going to protest.
These people had tried all the democratic channels, the lobbying of MPs, and had got nowhere. And therefore, as a last resort, they had opted for public demonstrations.
I wanted to march and protest. I wanted to sit down in the street. I wanted to tell as many people as I could.
But the biggest impetus certainly came from the black civil rights movement, and a feeling among Catholics that if the blacks of America could take on that mighty nation, we could take on a tuppence halfpenny state.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would certainly hope that in conducting this march in our city, that we will act in a responsible manner, demonstrating to the authorities that our intentions are to secure civil rights for the people of our cities and not to cause strife or bloodshed in our city. We are demanding homes, employment, freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. We do not wish bloodshed or violence.
The march through the predominantly Catholic city of Derry was not to be allowed through its Protestant centre. The march was poorly marshalled. There was confusion, and the police battened the crowd. This film, transmitted around the world, brought the Northern Ireland question back into the headlines. The civil rights movement had shown that something was sorely wrong in the province.
They made the judgment that there was no possibility of reform through the Northern Ireland system, and that therefore they should go to Westminster, which had overall authority and which, with the Labour government, seemed more open to persuasion. And also that they should try to secure publicity for their aims on the new media which were available, like television, and publicity not just in Northern Ireland or just in the rest of Ireland or Britain, but also internationally to put pressure from outside upon the British.
I think that it would be fair to say that many Protestants in those days supported the call of the cry of the civil rights. But what happened was the civil rights movement was taken over by the Republican element, and then in particular by the IRA, which later became the Provisional IRA. And I think that once the Protestants saw the civil rights being taken over by the Republican element, that any sympathy they may have had for the civil rights was quickly eroded.
Among other demonstrations organised in response to events in Derry, Belfast students, mostly Catholic, were marching from Queen's University to City Hall. Strategically placed along their route was a loyalist counter-demonstration organised by Paisley. The police halted the civil rights march. Paisley's demonstration continued.
We will not have this part of the city desecrated by Republicans. Those that have cursed our flag have cursed our Queen and our art to destroy our country. And I want to say that we are determined as ever to resist the Republicans from Queen's University.
Effectively blocked by the police and Paisley, the students sat down. Disorder like this was becoming a feature of the province's life.
The law in Northern Ireland will be maintained in the interest of all. We cannot and will not allow it to be flouted, nor will we permit others to take it into their own hands. It must now be evident that in the present atmosphere, further civil disorder carries the gravest risks, not for any one section of our population, but for all. No cause other than the cause of anarchy will be served by further riot and commotion in our streets.
O'Neill later made concessions to the civil rights movement. This further disturbed Protestants. O'Neill was becoming isolated. But for Catholics, it was too little, too late.
I want to tell the Ulster Cabinet that this great civil rights cause, which has grown in our country, is going to continue until such time as every town, every village has fundamental civil rights, until houses are allocated on the basis of merit and not on the basis of favour, until such time as every man, irrespective of his creed or his class, will be granted a job, until such time as all the people over the age of 21 will be entitled to vote in every election in our country in a democratic country.
I felt it was just one of these periodical upsurges. It definitely was anti-government. It definitely was anti-British.
They were shouting about the inhumanities that were being done to the Catholics, and something this was happening to Catholics. The Catholics couldn't get jobs, the Catholics couldn't get houses. But in the same token, I was a Protestant, and I couldn't get these things.
The whole community was reacting, almost as one person, to what we regarded as a very, very serious threat towards our way of life.
They just emphasised Catholic everything. I think that's what happened mainly to the Protestants as well when they saw this, most of the Protestants. But it was not a movement for civil rights, it was a movement for civil rights for Catholics and nobody else.
Mr. Prime Minister, what was the biggest achievement of tonight's meeting?
No comment.
O'Neill survived another vote of no confidence. It was proving difficult to hold a moderate middle ground. The marchers intended to go through Protestant areas. In a country where both Protestant and Catholic are acutely aware of their territory, this was a defiant act. The march was blocked by Paisleyite demonstrators, harassed by Protestant vigilantes and continually rerouted by the police.